back to episode 8 of Little Rock Ridge. In case you're a psychopath who decided to watch this episode before the previous, last week the lovely Furana added 2 wonderful western shops to the park, whilst I built a balloon shop, water cart, and of course the vehicle entrance park sign. This week, Kristine will be adding a fully skinned flat ride to Little Rock Ridge. However, before she does so, a bit of landscaping is in order. Once I received the footprint size of Kristine's ride, I placed down a rough guide before smashing through the existing road and tree line. Next, I rerouted the road around the new ride, creating a nice junction. With the road in place, I could then tidy up the area with terrain paints, smoothing, and foliage. By using the sampled paint setting, I was able to smooth and paint simultaneously. I know, mad skills. Much like last week, I made a junction signpost, although who uses road signs nowadays anyway? We're 8 episodes in and I've barely built anything functional in the park, so now feels like a great time to start. I decided to build a shop. As you'll see, this initially started out as a hat shop. However, the poor planner in me completely forgot that someone else was already making one, so I later decided to turn it into a pizza shop. I also shoved a staff room in the back as I realised there wasn't one nearby. It's always important to check where your employee's nearest staff room is, as time walking is time wasted. I created the basic structure using natural wood walls and then creating a balcony using decking. For the top level, I used the natural wood batten 4 metre pieces, but later on lowered them to 3 metres to ensure the coaster loop was still visible above the building. To tidy up this corner, I used wooden columns and then copied them around the building to make it into a design feature. Using said columns as a basis, I created yet another pergola using wooden pillars. I used a 1 metre piece to ensure even spacing. I personally really dislike it when people's feet clip through the floor. However, something I dislike more than that is the natural path curb. So I went for the lesser evil and covered up those annoying little stumps. A common theme with amusement park buildings is to have a raised facade to hide the unthemed roof and bits and pieces that reside up there. Speaking of those bits and pieces, I added some AC, a roof hatch and an electrical box. Time for some detailing. I added a nice trim, windows and doors. With the space to the left of the shop, I wanted to build a nice custom window. I used basic shapes, glass and beams. I added some bunting, but then had an existential crisis about the building's colour scheme. I was keen to use our usual teal, but it's always important to keep cohesion between the surrounding areas. I compromised by using some of the colours from Plastic Swan's wonderful gift shop. Time for a whole heap of props and clutter, my favourite. I added some windows to the lower level and popped yet another trim around the middle. To blend this alleyway nicely, I added some castle flat roof pieces and sunk them into the ground. For the lighting, I added a bunch of oil lamps and then once again copied from plastic swans. For cohesion, of course, definitely not laziness. With my bits done, it's time for this week's guest. Kristine is an expert builder in the Channel 5 gaming community after placing 4th in the mini park contest. A developer, writer and mod for Planet X, she made it into the penultimate round of the Nexus Knockouts, as well as just generally being a key member of the Planet Coaster community. She was tasked with creating a ride skin for the Aeronauts, a wonderful family ride for the younger folks in Little Rock Ridge. And boy is it a masterpiece.
Hi there, I'm Kristine, and I was really surprised but also gratified when Moomin asked me to be part of this collab. It's a cool challenge to build without any of the DLCs or TMTK. I've actually never tried it because I didn't start playing Planko until the Adventure Pack was released in, I think the start of 2018, I think. And I just bought everything available to me from the beginning, so for me this it wasn't even like going back to what I used to do before DLCs, but more trying something new that I've never done before. And it was definitely a challenge because there were a lot of times when I would think to myself, gosh, this piece would be perfect right here, but oh no, it's part of the spooky DLC or something. Well anyway, Moomin gave me the choice between 3 different flat ride skins and I chose the Aeronauts. I figured a smaller blueprint would make for an easier build when there wasn't quite so much ground to cover, and this was the smallest of the 3. I looked at the ride and asked myself, what does it look like? What can I do with this? Balloons carrying people up into the sky. And the idea came to build an airship. Of course, that was the first challenge, to build a round balloon made of fabric and not have it look awful. And I cursed myself for even getting the idea in the beginning. I used the drapes, recolored them, rotated them around. It took me a few tries before I was happy with the shape. But then it was just a question of adding a bunch of detail on it. And I mean, in realistic terms, this thing would never fly. It's much too heavy, but you know, it looks cool, so who cares, am I right? The design is from Anno 1800. There's an airship in the Arctic DLC for Anno that looks like this. Or well, something I tried to recreate at least. So if you have a problem with the aerodynamics of this thing and how it's too heavy to fly, just contact the developers of Anno and complain to them, not to me. I wanted the queue to be very immersive, so I added this old Western station building in the back. Combat Wombat actually sent me this reference picture and I thought, well, this is perfect. So, you know, story-wise, the idea is to simulate that this airship will take guests on a flying trip, and they can access the airship by a little stair leading from the old station and up onto the platform, the dock, I guess you would call it. The ride itself needed some cover too, I thought, but when it's operating, it rises up in the middle, so that caused me some grief. I built a platform in the beginning, but had to delete it because I hadn't turned on the ride. In the end, I just added some more drapes on the sides instead, also to, you know, aesthetically tie in the ride with the airship, because the ship also has these red drapes on the back to act as counterbalance. Yeah, that's it, I guess. Added foliage and a small pond on the side so that people have something nice to look at while they queue. It was really fun, and I've been so impressed with the other guys' creations from Moomin's Park, and I can't wait to see the next ones.
Thanks, Kristine. You're not the only one who's impressed. The level of detail in every single creation so far has been utterly incredible, and your flat ride is certainly no exception. We're already over halfway through this collab, but there are some incredible creations still to come. See you next week. Say goodbye, Kristine.
Bye, everyone.